Friday, 5 p.m. Jerusalem time. From NBC Studios. This is NBC Journal with Bassam Zahir and Sana Abu Samra.
This is NBC's English Journal with its main stories over the past week.
Israeli forces opened fire at Palestinians in north of West Bank, kill one and injure one.
Israel medically neglecting Palestinian prisoner, says Prisoners Commission.
UNRWA launches life-saving emergency appeals for Palestinian refugees in Syria.
Hello, welcome again. Israeli soldiers at Jalama checkpoint northeast of northern West Bank city of Jenin opened fire on Monday at two Palestinians on a motorcycle, killing one and injuring the other, according to the Red Crescent director in Jenin, Mahmoud Saadi. Abdullah Faisal Tawalbi, 19-year-old, who was killed, was first held by the army before being later transferred to the Palestinians. Witnesses reported that two youths were on a motorcycle at the entrance of Jalami village when the soldiers opened fire at them for no apparent reason.
The International Committee for the Defense of Children in Palestine stressed that the policy of impunity prevailing among the Israeli occupation forces and the immunity they have grant them an open permission to continue targeting Palestinian children, whether by killing or injuring. In a recent report, DCI reported that Israeli soldiers killed 3 children and wounded 15 others in West Bank and Gaza Strip in January. In Gaza Strip, the Israeli occupation forces hit Abdulrauf Ismail Muhammad Salha, 13 years old, with a gas grenade in his head on the 11th of January during his participation in the weekly peace march east of Jabalia, causing fractures in his skull to announce his martyrdom on the 14th of the same month. In the West Bank, Israeli occupation forces killed Ayman Ahmad Uthman Hamad, 17 years old, from the town of Silwad in Ramallah on the 25th of the last month, and injured his friend while they were in an agricultural land belonging to Ayman's father. Ayman's father said that his son was going on a picnic while he was hit by a bullet down the neck from the front, came out from his right arm, indicating that the bullet fired from a high place. On the 13th of last month, the Israeli occupation forces killed 16-year-old Samah Mubarak from the Qaddura refugee camp in Ramallah at an Israeli military checkpoint on a pretext that she tried to stab a soldier. Among the children who were wounded was Muhammad al-Qawasmi, 15 years old, who was shot by Israeli special forces in Shafat refugee camp on the evening of the 24th of January. The Israeli occupation forces announced his arrest during his stay in the hospital. DCI concluded its report by pointing out that the international community has always expressed its concern about the use of live ammunition by the Israeli occupation forces. However, the use of live ammunition against unarmed Palestinian children is increasingly common throughout the occupied Palestinian territory, in contravention of international laws and norms. Hanim Bakr, NBC.
A Palestinian succumbed to critical wounds he sustained last week as Israeli forces attacked the Great March of Return protesters along Gaza borders, said sources. Ahmed Abu Jabal, 30, died of critical wounds he sustained last week after being shot by Israeli forces offshore the town of Beit Lahia, north of Gaza.
The Central Elections Commission Chairman Hanna Nasser held a meeting on Monday with representatives of political parties and factions in the West Bank and discussed with them CEC's technical readiness to hold elections upon the issuance of presidential decree, according to a CEC press release. Nasser said that these meetings take place today in the West Bank and are scheduled to take place in the Gaza Strip are part of CEC's responsibility to report the participation of all factions and political parties in any future elections and to identify parties' positions with regards to elections.
Austrian President Alexander van der Bellen is scheduled to visit Palestine on Tuesday, wherein he'll be meeting with President Mahmoud Abbas, according to Majdi al-Khalidi, Abbas's diplomatic advisor. Al-Khalidi told Voice of Palestine Radio on Monday that talks between the two leaders will focus on strengthening bilateral relations as well as enhancing the role Austria can play in the Middle East peace process in light of the hostile American and Israeli policies toward the Palestinians. Khalidi noted that the Austrian foreign minister is also going to visit Palestine in the near future.
Mayor of Terdid Mansour said that settlers stormed the village and spray-painted anti-Palestinian slogans on the walls and asphalt of a mosque and several vehicles. Minister of Awqaf and Religious Affairs Yusuf Idais denounced the settlers' vandalism. He urged Arab and Islamic countries and other honorable nations around the world to intervene and protect holy places in the occupied Palestinian territories.
Israeli forces on Monday detained at least 100 Palestinians, mostly in multiple overnight raids across the West Bank, reported several sources. Local sources said that the Israeli military vehicles raided the northern West Bank city of Jenin, where soldiers detained 3 Palestinians, including a former prisoner. Israeli forces frequently raid Palestinian houses almost on a daily basis across the West Bank under the pretext of searching for wanted Palestinians, triggering clashes with residents.
Israeli authorities began building the overground part of the Gaza border barrier, according to Hart's Israeli Daily. Hart's reported that the overground section of the barrier will be 65 kilometers long and will be 6 meters high. It added that the barrier is meant to prevent underground tunnels from Gaza. The project, estimated to cost 3 million shekels, will include a concrete wall fitted with sensors and reaching dozens of meters deep into the ground and standing 6 meters high from ground level.
Israeli military ordered 50 Palestinian families in the northern Jordan Valley to leave their homes so that the army can hold military drills, according to Mu'taz Bsharat, a local official. At least 18 families, consisting of 93 members from Ras Al Ahmar area, southeast of Tubas, were ordered to stay away from the area starting at 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. on 6th and 12th of February. Meanwhile, the Israeli military also ordered 32 other families, consisting of 218 members from Khirbat al-Burj, Ain al-Mayta and Hamamat al-Malih areas to also leave their homes for the same reason and at the same time on the 6th of February.
Member of the Central Committee of Fatah Movement, Tawfiq Tirawi, said on Sunday that the PLO Committee of Dialogue has approached all factions in an effort to find a way leading to the formation of a new government. In the aftermath of resignation of the National Consensus government, the committee is scheduled to meet with all the factions of the PLO regardless of their declared positions. Tirawi pointed out that the Dialogue Committee had several meetings with the Democratic Front, the People's Party, and the Palestinian Democratic Union parties with regard to forming a new government. The Fatah official denied that any names were nominated for positions in the next government, stressing that all efforts now are focusing on the formation of the new government.
Sikh Palestinian prisoner in Israeli jails, Mahmoud Abu Kharabish, 54, who is serving a life sentence, has been medically neglected by Israeli prison authorities, according to the Detainees Affairs Commission. Abu Kharabish is suffering from heart problems, irregular heartbeats, blood pressure suffered while in prison, high cholesterol and several stomach pains, the Commission said in a press release. Despite this illness, Abu Kharabish has not received any suitable treatment for many years, added the Commission. Abu Kharabish has spent more than 25 years in Israeli jails and is considered the longest-serving prisoner from Jericho district in the occupied West Bank. Israel demolished his home in the same year he was arrested.
The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees has launched its 2019 Syria Regional Crisis Emergency Appeal, totaling 276.9 million. Funds raised by this appeal will provide vital life-saving humanitarian assistance to Palestine refugees in Syria, Jordan and Lebanon, who had continued to face significant humanitarian and protection needs, UNRWA noted in a press release.
The Israeli-European Union criticized on Friday the Israeli decision not to renew the mandate of the temporary international presence in Hebron, a civilian monitoring team of 64 people from 5 European countries, stressing that the team has played an important role in preventing violence between Palestinians and Israeli settlers in Hebron. The EU said, in line with a statement issued by the contributing countries to the mission, the EU stresses Israel's obligations under international law to protect the Palestinian people in Hebron, as well as in other parts of the occupied Palestinian territory.
Israeli occupation forces on Friday evening handed over the bodies of 2 slain Palestinians from Jerusalem and Hebron in the occupied West Bank, who were killed by the forces in October and December of 2018. Israeli military handed over the body of Muammar al-Atrash, 42, from Hebron, who was shot dead by the occupation forces on October 22nd in the old city of Hebron. His body has been withheld by the forces since then. The army also handed over the body of slain Palestinian Majd Mtair, 26, from Kalandia refugee camp, north of Jerusalem, who was shot dead by the army on December 13th.
Member of the Executive Committee of the Palestine Liberation Organization, Hanan Ashrawi, said in a statement on Friday that the Israeli hardline coalition government, led by Benjamin Netanyahu, is responsible for practicing blatant discrimination and generating a culture of hate and racism. Ashrawi was referring to recent hateful remarks made by top Israeli politicians, which she described as inflammatory and inciting of hate against Arabs and Palestinians. Such acts and words are undermining the chances of peace and enhancing hostility and mistrust between both peoples, stated Ashrawi in a report that includes examples of inflammatory comments by Israeli government officials and leaders.
At least 15 Palestinians were injured by the live bullets and 4 others by rubber-coated rounds on Friday after Israeli occupation forces attacked a protest in the village of Al-Mughayyar, northeast of Ramallah, against repeated attacks by Jewish settlers on the village. Soldiers opened fire and rubber-coated steel rounds to disperse the non-violent protesters shortly after performing Friday prayers in open field near the village ahead of the protest. Last Saturday, a Palestinian man from the village, 38-year-old Hamdi Nassan, was shot dead by extremist Jewish settlers from a nearby settlement.
Spanish rail equipment maker announced on Friday its refusal to participate in a tender to build a section of the railway in occupied Jerusalem as it violates international law. The company, which is one of the most important Spanish companies in the field of railways, said it refuses to build a section of the railway in Jerusalem because the Israeli government included in the section a Palestinian land that will be confiscated in violation of the resolutions of international legitimacy. Representatives of the company's workers who objected to the company's participation in the construction of this section explained that the problems lie in the fact that the railway will pass through Palestinian land to serve illegal settlements in occupied East Jerusalem.
A Palestinian teenager sustained multiple fractures in his leg after being assaulted and beaten by Israeli soldiers near Jenin city in the northern West Bank, according to the Palestinian Red Crescent. PRC official Mahmoud Saadi told Wafa that 17-year-old Majdi Abu Ghali from Jenin was assaulted and beaten up severely by Israeli soldiers after he entered the site of the abandoned Israeli settlement of Ghanim, east of Jenin. Wafa correspondent said the teenager had not known of the Israeli soldiers who raided the evacuated settlement and that he was surprised by the soldiers who shortly attacked and brutally beat him up for no reason.
President Mahmoud Abbas said during a joint press conference in Ramallah with visiting Maltese President Marie-Louise Colero-Preca that what encouraged Israel to act as a state above the law was the support of the U.S. administration. What encourages Israel to act as a state above the law is the U.S. administration's support and its blind bias towards the Israeli occupation by recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and by moving the U.S. embassy to it in violation of the resolutions of international legitimacy. The president noted the two leaders discussed the important role Malta can play in achieving peace through its membership in the European Union.
Outgoing Prime Minister Rami Hamdallah met on Thursday at his Ramallah office with German State Secretary for Foreign Affairs Andreas Michaelis and discussed the latest political developments and violations of Israeli occupation and its settlers. Hamdallah praised Germany's position in the two-state solution and its rejection of settlements. He welcomed its continued financial support for Palestine, which he said has contributed significantly toward the building of state institutions and many other vital sectors, especially education, water, and infrastructure projects. The Prime Minister called on Germany to play an active role and its pressure Israel to stop its settlement expansion and to abandon its plans to displace Palestinian residents and demolish their homes, particularly in Jerusalem.
The Israeli Diplomatic Security Cabinet is expected to approve a major cut to the new tax revenues Israel collects on behalf of the Palestinian Authority, with the amount the PA pays as stipends to the families of Palestinians killed or imprisoned by Israel, which is deducted from the money Israel hands over to the PA within 2 weeks. Israel Hayom news site reported that the Israeli Ministry of Defense has been assiduously collecting figures to determine the exact amount the PA pays out in terror salaries for some weeks. The Israel Ministry of Finance will reportedly carry out the deduction after a report on the salaries is presented.
The documentary film Gaza, directed by Gary Keane and Andrew McConnell, won the Best Documentary Short Film Premier's Goya Award on Sunday. At the Goya Awards in Spain, the documentary film first premiered in the Sundance Film Festival early 2019. The documentary depicts the lives of Palestinians in the besieged Gaza Strip when they are not under the nearly 12-year Israeli siege. The world titled Gaza as the largest open prison, as no one can even imagine how it would look like without a siege. McConnell, a photojournalist, first visited Gaza in 2010 and in 2012 and teamed up with documentary filmmaker Keane for the film. The documentary was shot in 2014 and 2015. Keane said, we wanted to form a collection of people and let them tell their story. The narrative comes from them. It doesn't come from us. We saw normal people with families trying to live, trying to feed their families, trying to maintain some semblance of normality, Keane added. And now moving on to University News.
Professor An-Najah, acting president of An-Najah, received a delegation from the city of Boulder, headed by Dr. Azria Charan, board president of Boulder Nablus Sister City Project. The visit focused on learning more about An-Najah and discussing possible means of mutual cooperation and ways to build upon and enhance the accomplishments prioritized through a previously agreed memorandum of understanding with the Sister City Project. Professor An-Najah welcomed the delegation and talked about An-Najah's programs, academic achievements and international agreements. He then referred to the political and economic challenges that the Palestinian universities face. Professor An-Najah also thanked the guests for their continuous support and cooperation, expressing his confidence that this visit will enhance joint cooperation between the two parties in many ways. The head of the delegation in turn expressed her delight for being at An-Najah and stressed the importance of the cooperation between both parties. She also wished that the visit would result in further cooperation in different areas of mutual interest.
An-Najah signs an MOU with Al Ahliya Amman University A delegation from Al-Ahliya Amman University visited An-Najah National University and met with the acting president of Najah University, Professor Maher An-Najah. Both parties signed an MOU focusing on academic exchange and research cooperation and discussed possible means of academic cooperation between the two universities. Professor Maher An-Najah briefed the delegation of An-Najah history, academic programs, scientific centers, campus locations, as well as the numerous and diverse international partnerships An-Najah has headed over the years. Professor Maher An-Najah also praised the role of the Jordanian government to support the Palestinian people and the Palestinian cause. He stressed the importance of this visit and hoped to expand the cooperation. The delegation commended An-Najah's role as a leading university in Palestine and for the strong academic relationships to cultivate with institutions around the world. Following the meeting, the delegation was taking on a tour of the new campus, which included the Media Center, the Archaeological Museum, and the library.
These are the news of the week. Thank you for watching. For more details, visit our website nn.ps.
See you next Friday.